Welcome back to another legendary episode of the one and only Speculation Alley. It's your boy ABOMB here, and of course with me as always is my brother from another mother, Cryptodilly. What's going on, my man?
Not a lot, man. Ready to... Whoa, my light's going crazy back there.
Yeah, it's got something. It knows that we're filming and we're live.
We're live, baby. Yeah, I'm ready to get into it. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, we're going to be unpacking a little bit of the organic discussion that took place on our Twitter chat Wednesday at 5 Pacific Standard Time. And I just want to drop that right away because when we usually do these chats, we unpack a lot more or even discover more than what we originally did in the first place. So hop into that on Wednesday. But let's jump straight into it. We're kind of jumping into this theory that maybe heavy metal is connected directly to Wagmi-san and what he's got going in some of these recent tweets. So let's jump into these tweets and unpack these first. Why don't you do that?
Yeah, I mean, before we get too far into that, I think what's really interesting about last week is we had a couple different things. Obviously, we unpacked what had happened the previous Thursday, which is like Wagmi-san, like basically covering up this machine that is skimming resources off the top. And Marshall Howen comes in and basically like takes him away, or his goons do. And while this happens, it's right before heavy metal is introduced and launches as a game. And so as the conversation started to develop, we started to think about how Wagmi-san is in this, new frontier. It's back in time, but he's dealing with all these advanced technologies, and he's basically dealing with what we believe is a robot or a heavy metal. And so if that's the case, if he actually has a heavy metal that he's been developing and it's skimming resources, then what if that machine that he's developed is interoperable with the heavy metal game that's being played out? Because now we know that heavy metal as a game is a pet game / world builder that turns into a dungeon crawler. And if a dungeon crawler, as we know with the lo-fi beats on the Bored Ape Yacht Club's YouTube channel, you can see like the heavy metal Jeff just cooking it up, just hanging out, vibing. And the most recent anime trailer for heavy metal shows him just like going to flashbacks, like chopping it up and like defeating like these enemies. And what I would imagine is heavy metal arena. And we also know with 10KTF that we have G tags, which will turn into PFPs, but we also have Battletown, which is not yet launched for season 2. So is there a crossover between Battletown and Heavy Metal Arena? Are they one and the same is the question.
Yeah, I think that's a great unpacking of all of that. Sorry, I was dealing with my tortoise literally trying to eat my cords over here. Sorry about that. But I think that wraps that up really well. And I think to look at sort of how these things could cross-pollinate, if we go back a little bit further in some of these tweets with Wagmi-san, it looks like he's about to almost like pet, and he's like excited at the fact of whatever's come out of this like cylinder with, we see the heartbeats on the side, and we know from the heavy metal game already you need to care for and pet and essentially make sure that your heavy metal is cared for overall. And I think something to be aware of as well in this storyline, what we're seeing with Wagmi-san, now that he's been captured, he's being held against his own will. This guy Howen's taken all of his resources to do whatever he wants with, build structure. Will we see a little heavy metal character come in and help Wagmi-san out of this, or maybe some other friends from the past, Super Puma, maybe somebody else, and kind of display some heroism, but then lead into this ultimate like conflict, which seems like with Howen and Wagmi-san here? And will that take place within sort of the heavy metal or Wagmi-san arena that we see? Because Howen's going to build out some structure. So could that structure be one of these forges, a giant arena where he's saying like, hey, bring all the bad guys here at this arena and we'll see if they can like live through this like heavy, like, and he uses heavy metals to do his bidding for him? I don't know how it's going to play out, but it seems like there's a lot of potential for that to take place, just in the way that we're seeing G tags, as you said, going to reveal a PFP from 10KTF. We were told to use them wisely in Battletown, and Battletown's right around the corner in here about mid-July. So we got a lot of things lining up.
I think one thing that's super interesting is that obviously all of this falls under the Yuga umbrella, right? And so you actually have like this team that's been working on all these different NFTs, and they're dynamic. And I think this is the most important piece of everything, is that the storyline, the narrative has to fit in with the also like functionality and utility of the NFTs moving forward. And so as the, Legends of the Mara story continues on, and what's going on with heavy metals, and then also what's happening with Wagmi-san in this previous story, there's going to be a convergence. And we've talked about that for a long time. But one thing that's super interesting that hinges and is the flashback that holds the glue together for all of this is that whatever happened last summer, they don't want to happen again. And we do know that Super Puma, because of the comics that they've released, was a part of whatever happened last summer. And so the call to action for friends to come and help Wagmi-san, I think that will play out in the stories. And in the last week's tweets, we actually see Marshall Howen discover Wagmi-san's like lair where he has all these resources that he's been keeping, and it's under the rug. And then once he actually like finds those resources, he basically has Wagmi-san in one of those, old school executioner like ratchet things on stage, and he's about to like kill Wagmi-san in front of all these people for stealing from the top. And so I think we're about to see a point where Wagmi-san is saved, whether that's because of his heavy metal that is actually been built and developed by Wagmi-san, or it's Super Puma. I think we do see some friend come and actually rescue Wagmi-san in the coming weeks.
Yes, and I want to go into a further speculation brought forth by Cinema and Keegan as well, because if you look at the heavy metal like living thing with their tweet as well, whatever it was, their room, it looked like a big orb, and we saw that video from Wagmi-san, which also had a similar orb, which is that where his heavy metal is living? Furthermore, Cinema brought up the fact that his watch was dropped really early on. From the moment we met Howen, it was about like him stealing this watch. Wagmi-san still had his watch. Is that watch something that's going to be able to control the heavy metal or some other form of technology that's yet to be seen? That was something that I thought was interesting. And furthermore, with just thinking about the iterations of Battletown 2.0, like Figgy said, get ready for, Battletown will start mid-July, and there's going to be nothing mid about it. So are we going to see 3D rendered avatars from similar to what we saw in Figgy's very first, presentation, where we saw them actually modeling a 3D rendered Wagmi-san as well? We saw that video of Wagmi-san running down the streets and getting that Gucci mail in that little like mailbox, whatever. So it seems like they have those assets, but I'm still wondering, and I'm keeping my hopium at a minimum, I guess we'll say, because I'm thinking of the most simplistic iteration they could make, which is you say, I'm going on this mission, you choose your mission, you submit your avatar and your loadout for that mission, and rather than it just ending and you getting something or not, I think it ends and you say, okay, you got something from this mission. Now, what do you do with that thing? And this again brings in the community interoperability, where it's like, hey, we might actually find out we need to go talk to people that are forging stuff in heavy metal and give them our materials to, or have people that are OGs in the system like, hey, I need you to use this in your forge and combine it in some way. Who knows? I'm not sure, but maybe even just within the simplistic form of Battletown, getting a resource and deciding either giving it to Wagmi-san to further his goals or giving it to Howen and helping him build out the structure of which, whatever that means he is doing. So I don't know. There's a lot of options on the table, but that's what we're talking about here. It's speculation now.
There's also the game mechanics side that we actually talked about, which is what Yuga Labs is experimenting with. We had Dookie Dash, which was a skill-based game that was very fast and heavy, almost like an endless runner, right? And then you have a very chill pet game now that's come out, and I think they're really experimenting with how can ape spend be optimized so that way it's building recurring revenue? What's going to engage their audience the quickest and the most? And what style of games can you build out on the other side that are playable, that could also be profitable for other gaming companies to come in and build out their worlds within the other side on this platform? So as they're actually scaling this, these two games, they're showing that this is scalable, it's profitable, and everybody's going to want to be a part of it. So go
Yeah.
get another deed, not financial advice, but I'm ready to play on those, and I'm excited to see how all the interoperability really plays into each other. With that being said, I think that's a great recap of what we kind of dove into. There's a lot to think about. Hopefully, we got your wheels spinning. That's the whole goal of Speculation Alley. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also leave a comment below what you think these games will really mold into and how Wagmi-san's story is going to continue moving forward. So that's it for this week's episode. This is Cryptodilly and ABOMB, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.